It's rare for me to be as enchanted by a first chapter as I was by Shinpei Watanabe's Ginka and Glüna when it started publication in September. Now, I've read my fair share of shounen action-adventure series, but what really distinguishes Ginka and Glüna from many of its kind is how heavily this manga leans into the fantastical aspects of the genre. This is a series that takes us on a magical journey in every sense of the words. In particular, Ginka and Glüna feels so fresh and fun because of its simple but effective theming and world building, which made this series stand out, at least for me, among the many works that are churned out by Shonen Jump. Hello, my name is Sean, and I break down what makes great stories tick. The premise of Ginka and Glüna is quite simple. At the start of the manga, we meet Glüna, a young girl living alone on a snowy mountain. And before any of you start commenting about my pronunciation, her name is written Ryuna in katakana, so I'm leaving the G silent for now. In any case, Glüna dreams of becoming a magician, to bring an end to her harsh life and explore the world. And one day, a snowman that she had encountered outside suddenly seems to be alive and breaks into her house. This snowman turns out to have been a powerful magician called Ginka, who lost his body during a ferocious magical battle. Ginka teaches Glüna magic, and after a few years of training, she becomes a fully fledged magician, and the two of them set out on a journey to restore Ginka's body. Now, to discuss what distinguishes the world building of Ginka and Glüna from that of many other shonen adventure series, I'll be relying on the concepts of hard and soft magic. In case some of you might not be familiar with these terms, the classifications hard and soft magic were popularized by the fantasy author Brandon Sanderson. For Sanderson, hard magic refers to magic systems with very clear rules and limitations for the workings of their supernatural powers. The best example of a very hard magic system in the medium of manga is probably Death Note. This series establishes a few simple rules for the use of its Death Notes, which remain consistent until the end of the story. And this knowledge allows us to appreciate how creatively Death Note's characters use and exploit the rules of its magic system. Soft magic, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Softer magic systems have no clearly defined rules or limitations, and are often said to provoke a sense of wonder. But most magic systems are not cleanly aligned with either of these extremes, but rather they fall somewhere on the spectrum between hard and soft. Most modern shonen fantasy series include at least a bit of hardness to their magic systems. They often include concepts like ki or like chakra to set some limits on what characters can plausibly accomplish. There are some series, like Hunter x Hunter or Jujutsu Kaisen, that try to establish more detailed, harder rules for the use of their magic. Whereas something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an example of a manga with a much laxer, but still not completely arbitrary, approach to its power system. And even naming plays a role here. When a manga frames its magic in terms like curse technique or ninjutsu, they offer the impression that their supernatural powers are more limited and specific than it would be if the magic would simply be referred to as magic. And it's exactly on this front that Ginka and Glüna distinguishes itself from most other shonen fantasy series. Ginka and Glüna does not delineate and limit the workings of its magic system, but goes all in with soft magic. When we are first introduced to Glüna, we learn that she has been able to cope with her loneliness and difficult living conditions by immersing herself in a book about magic. She fantasizes about becoming a magician because that will bring an end to her hardships and allow her to visit anywhere in the world. And significantly, she has never witnessed an actual magician. For Glüna, magic mainly exists in her imagination. And as it turns out, Ginka shares the belief that magic is something with an endless potential. When Luna discovers that the snowman is actually a powerful magician, she openly doubts that she has the talent to become one herself. But in response, Ginka taps into that very sense of wonder that captivated Luna all this time. In his view, you can only become a magician if you don't limit your imagination, because a true magician is someone who can do anything they set out to do. And what makes the first chapter of Ginka and Glüna so spectacular is how well it pays off these ideas. After Ginka takes on Glüna as a student, the manga quickly flashes forward to the moment where Glüna completes her training. Ginka had instructed her to create fruit through magic, but she far surpasses his expectations. Instead of a single piece of fruit, she creates an entire forest in the snowy mountains. And the snow bananas Glüna now materializes at will are the same ones she considered a lucky find on page 1 of this very chapter. All to highlight that now that she has become a magician, Glüna can do all she could ever dream of as a child and much, much more. And then, the second half of the chapter actually reverses the roles of the two characters. When Glüna is about to set out, Ginka reveals that he won't join her. Because as it turns out, he can't live outside of the mountains in his current snowman-like states. And this time, Ginka is the one who can only see limits, but Glüna refuses to compromise. After all, she has been taught that there's nothing a magician can't accomplish. Glüna somehow preserves Ginka's body by recreating the environment she grew up in, which allows Ginka to travel the world together with her. And notably, we don't get a quasi-scientific explanation of how she's able to do this. And in my view, rightly so, since any attempt to regulate Glüna's magic would take away from the way this chapter is trying to characterize the workings of the magic in this world. And what I find interesting about this series is that Ginka and Glüna are in a way fully realized characters from the very first chapter. Time and again, the manga contrasts their seemingly limitless magic abilities to those of the characters they meet over the course of their journey. This is most explicitly showcased in chapter 2, where they stumble upon a rare flower dragon. But upon turning the page, it's revealed that this is not actually a flower dragon. Instead, they've been baited by a monster that uses its magical powers to lure humans and devour them, and then spends the rest of its time reminiscing about its tastiest prey. But to the monster's surprise, its newest victims are not at all frightened when they find out what has actually happened. The response of Glüna, someone who has had to live in the mountains all her life, is that it's just such a waste to stay put and keep doing the same thing over and over again if you have magical powers. And when Glüna takes on her captor, she overcomes it by creating something far more amazing than the monster that she's facing. So in other words, the first major conflict of the series juxtaposes Glüna's limitless imagination with an opponent who never even considered tapping into the full potential of magic. In a way, Glüna stands out even more when she meets other magicians. Already in chapter 1, we learn that Glüna's skills and the way she acquired them are quite extraordinary. Ginka mentions that magicians must normally start their training as toddlers, since it's difficult for people to become magicians if they have been steeped in common sense and conventions. So, what is it then that sets Glüna apart from other magicians? What I assume here is that this ties in with the central idea of the manga's first 2 chapters, that magical abilities are the result of an unbounded imagination. So then, the reason why normal magicians have to learn magic from such a young age is that they would otherwise become acquainted with cultural practices and societal norms, which would limit the scope of their imagination. In other words, we're getting something that's a bit similar to the nature-culture divide. The natural soft magic of this world can only reach its full potential if it's not tempered by human culture. This also explains why Luna forms an exception to the norm. She grew up alone on a mountain, far away from human society. Her only knowledge of magic came from a single book that filled her with a sense of wonder. All this, then, offered her, in a way, the most fertile ground to develop her magical abilities to the fullest. The manga delves deeper into these ideas in Chapter 3, when the duo arrives in the region's capital city, a place where Luna is surprisingly out of her depth. Unlike the natural settings of the first two chapters, which take place in natural landscapes with seemingly endless possibilities, the city is a realm where magic is no longer a wondrous thing, but has been turned into a mundane tool. When a local baker finds out that Luna is a magician, she offers to feed her if Luna can repair her magic oven. And when Luna struggles to do so, she encounters another magician, Beretta. Beretta is presented as the complete opposite to Luna. She excels at working with magical equipment, but she's not particularly skilled at using magic herself. And unlike Luna, who grew up secluded from society, Beretta has an aristocratic background. So, social customs must have been instilled in her from a young age. Beretta also embodies the urban approach to magic. In the city, we see that magic is treated as a kind of science, a field to be studied and replicated. We're given the impression that the city dwellers are treating magic as a kind of hard magic system, with clearly defined rules and limitations. And while the efforts of magical engineers like Beretta certainly seem to benefit the local populace, it's also apparent that in this world, a magician who takes the magical out of magic will never be able to measure up to a girl like Luna, for whom magic is a source of wonder. And the contrast between Luna and the urban magicians is brought out even further during her visit to the Magicians' Union. This union feels like it's been lifted from the most cliched fantasy RPGs. This is essentially the base where you pick up missions, complete with a star ranking and everything. But instead of doing the normal thing, becoming members of the union and taking on missions one at a time, Ginka and Luna speedrun every single mission the union has to offer in the span of only 3 pages. Now, if you allow me a brief digression here, I want to quickly address the series' pacing. In online discussions about Ginka and Luna, the most common criticism I've come across is that its pacing is way too fast. My favorite, actually, was a comment describing Ginka and Luna as Zoomer manga, and I'm really frustrated that I can't remember where I saw that. And I understand why this is brought up so often. Like in the case of the Guild, Ginka and Luna has the habit of flying through material that would normally occupy a full chapter or even a longer story arc in a few moments. But, in my view, there's often a narrative purpose for this frantic pacing. My impression is that Ginka and Luna is not rushing the series out of fear of cancellation or just for the sake of it. The montage in Chapter 3, for instance, serves to establish just how absurdly superior our protagonists are to mages like Beretta, something that would be way less apparent if their first mission would be dragged out for an entire chapter. And at the same time, the scene also shows that Ginka and Glüna are unable or unwilling to conform to the norms of society that shackle down other magicians. They don't play by the union's rules and don't become affiliated with the institution either. Instead, they come barging in like a force of nature and clear all its missions without batting a single eye. And this more restricted, harder approach to magic is not limited to folks in the capital city either. All other magicians that Glüna has met so far use a system called Verokian magic, which is revealed to be a simplified form of magic that relies on wands and incantations. One character has also referred to it as stripped-down magic. And significantly, this is a character who's set up to be the series' first major villain. And I'll get back to her at the end of the video. In any case, the fact that Ginka and Glüna do not require a wand to use magic appears to be an anomaly. This is especially highlighted by the fact that they have already on 2 occasions disarmed their opponents by taking away their wands, while not using wands themselves. This manga repeatedly stresses how users of Verokian magic fall short in comparison with Glüna. In chapter 8, Glüna faces off against 2 apprentices of Karula, the highest-ranking mage in the Magicians Guild, which is the institution that only admits the most accomplished magicians. The apprentices' approach to magic appears quite different from what Glüna has been showcasing to this point. The first thing we see them do is review their theoretical knowledge about the classifications and the basic 3 incantations of Verokian magic. During their fight with Glüna, all they're capable of doing is using and combining the basic incantations. And with these powers, they chip away the ground Glüna is standing on. But just when they believe that they've cornered their opponent, Glüna turns the tables on them. With her magic, she defies the laws of gravity and breaks one of the apprentices' wands. So, thematically, the series juxtaposes the 2 apprentices who approach magic as a science that gives them an array of tools at their disposal with a magician who thinks outside the box and uses magic to overturn the very rules of physics. Glüna basically invalidates everything Verokian magic stands for. She renders its clearly delineated techniques obsolete and destroys the wand that represents the use of Verokian magic. In the next chapter, their master Karula confronts Glüna and recognizes her magic for what it is. Glüna is not using the institutionalized Verokian magic, but dark magic. Magic in a more pure, primal form. And when Karula inquires into Ginka's reasons for only teaching her that kind of magic, Ginka gives an elliptical response. He says that this decision is somehow related to an as of yet unrevealed destination that Glüna wants to reach. But what we can surmise is that there is a connection between this pure primal magic and Glüna's dreams, to travel the world and lay eyes on all the wonders it has to offer. And this desire explicitly contrasts Glüna and Karula. Karula's aspiration is to gain as much strength as possible through the use of Verokian magic. He's the kind of person who, when he reaches a mountain, rushes straight to the summit. In fact, he literally lives on top of the world's highest mountain. This mentality is also exemplified by his habit of preparing disgusting but highly nutritious meals. He sees something like food as a means to an end. Glüna, meanwhile, is all about the journey, not the destination. And she eats not for its nutritional value, but because she enjoys the experience itself. And What's interesting here is that Luna's worldview seems to be validated by the series' world building. The world of this manga is one with adventures seemingly around every single corner. In just the first 13 chapters, we get a visit to a myriad of awe-inspiring locations. The site of a battle between two magicians who warp the very laws of time and space. A city full of massive towers. A magical mine from the mythical past. The tallest peak in the world. A floating mountain surrounded by dragons. An indoor space filled with fantastical quasi-planets. And this world is also inhabited by all kinds of supernatural creatures. This is a series where I just want to be around for the ride, to see all this world has to offer. And in a way, the world's most powerful magician, alone on top of his mountain, is not too different from the monster Luna took pity on in chapter 2. Now, this is the part of the video where I usually come to some kind of overarching conclusion. But since this manga has only been serialized for 3 months, I can't really say all too much about where this is going yet. But I do hope that I've convinced you that this series seems to be exploring some interesting ideas and taking a somewhat different approach to magic than most other shounen manga. And the most recent chapter, as recording, has got me really excited for what's to come. The manga just appears to have introduced the story's first antagonist, and her thinking seems to be more akin to that of Luna. She seems to want to impose her will on the world, to remodel it in her image. She might be the first character outside of the main duo with enough imagination to tap into the seemingly endless potential of magic. But her actions might also highlight the darker consequences of having a soft magic system with seemingly endless potential. So, who knows? I might discuss how Ginka and Glüna follows up on these ideas at a later stage. Or this manga might share the fate of so many other Shonen Jump series and get cancelled around chapter 20. And then, I'll just have wasted a few days of my life. But what I can guarantee is that you won't waste your time if you subscribe to this channel, which will ensure that you get all my future analysis content. So anyways, that's all for today, and I'll see you at this next video here. Yeah, that's right, this one. At least I hope that's what's happening.